more painterly like an oil paint would be. And you can scrumble, you can dry brush, things like that. And then because I tend to work very tedious and monotonously slow with all my glazes, then I get tired at some point, and I usually pick up a palette knife and put it on with a palette knife because that helps me to relax and work more quickly and more immediately. I work by gut more than I do like overthinking everything. As far as surfaces to paint on, I can paint pretty much on anything. Primarily, I work on canvas board. I don't care for stretch canvas. For me personally, I don't like the give under the brush. I tend to like more the control of a canvas board. And also for plein air, you don't have the sunlight coming through it from the back, which tends to be really distracting for me. Because it dries quickly, with the plein air, I don't, it dries quickly. So that's why I tend to go to other surfaces that seem to allow me to work it longer. And I use gesso board frequently, or aqua board, both of which handle about the same, which is what this is. This is a gesso board here, and it allows me to work the paint longer because it flows over the surface. It doesn't get caught into the crevices of the canvas pattern. And then I came back with a knife here to do the finishing part. This is on canvas. This is knife on canvas. I like the acrylics. I always go back and glaze. So I get parts here, and then I'll go back and tone things down with a really thin, transparent glaze. The other thing, this is on watercolor paper, and I treated it like watercolor. This is not finished. Most of these aren't finished. Those two are finished. But it allowed me the transparency things, but still using white. So that if I were to keep working on this, I would work into the detail on that. And then this is a palette knife again on the gesso board. And then this one is actually pastel board, which has very smooth yet toothy finish. So everything comes across very matte. So if you want a fairly even but matte finish, and that's just glazes with thin paint. I have not tried doing this with a more impasto feel to it. As far as mediums, there are a lot of mediums for acrylics. Supposedly, water is not a good one, but that's all I've ever used is primarily water. They also make glazing liquids. They have gel, soft gel, heavy gel. These were given by the manufacturers of Golden when they provided us with tools to do that project downtown. It's a fiber paste and a molding paste, neither of which I've tried to use. That'd be interesting to kind of try to use it. And I also included the brochure that Golden sent. These are samples of their colors. I like to work primarily with the quinacridones. They're very transparent, they're very bright, intense. And I always wondered why my acrylics always look so bright instead of like oil paintings would, how it always looks more subdued. And I finally realized not only does it seem brighter because the mediums aren't toned like the gold, but at the same time, the colors I choose to use are more bright, vibrant colors. So that's just my style. And then I've also brought along, if anybody wants to look at it, it was a handout from the Golden demonstration we had at the Art League meeting, and it lists all their different mediums and stuff that these were there. So I like it though. Transparent, and it gives you that. It's the same thing with watercolors too, like the cobalts are going to be more opaque, more granular in the pigments. The quinacridones are synthetic pigments, aren't they? So and because of that, I think it lends to their transparency. But yeah, and it's like what I don't like to do much, I try not to add white. I rarely paint totally local color. I tend to layer, that's my way I like to paint. So I can't get, like I said, I can't get it subdued. Even when I put gray with it, but when I put gray or white, it tends to look more chalky. So I tend to go that way.
Like with oil, is there a transparent or translucent white that you can, a mixing white that
There
doesn't
is. It's like a zinc white.
Zinc white look, yes.
zinc white?
Yeah.
So that's
Does that have zinc in it?
I assume it does. I didn't bring any with me. I don't know.
Well, it's zinc white, but it's also called transparent mixing white. Is the title on it, and then if you look at it, it's a zinc white. So, Duane's going to talk about the different brands and the difference between oils and acrylics.
Yeah, well, like Deb, I started back into painting after retiring, basically, just before retiring, because I knew I wanted to get back into it. I started also with, in Vivian Ripley's class, with acrylics. Never used acrylics before, didn't even know what acrylics were, didn't even know they existed. And I keep my first painting, because it's so bad, that just a reminder of where he started from. And I painted almost exclusively with acrylics up until about 2 years ago. And I wanted to get into oils, get back into oils. And doing that was a bit of a challenge after working with acrylics, because they work differently. And basically, what I found was with acrylics, I like to work dry. And they dry very quickly. And like Deb, I don't use any of the extenders or any of the other stuff. I just basically use water. And so they dry very quickly. And I like to layer, and I know if I make a mistake or I feel I made a mistake, I can go right over it again. And there are a couple of things that you use, a couple of items that you use, especially indoors, with acrylics that you don't need to use with oils. And one is, in this little bag, is a hair dryer. Because if it's not drying fast enough, you can actually dry it with a little hair dryer.
So I have one of those.
Yeah. And then on the other end, if it's drying too fast on your palette, you also need to have a little spray bottle, a mister, to keep the stuff wet. And in using acrylics initially, I was, like Deb, very detailed, because you can go back in and layer and go back and back and back and back. When I got into oils, I found that I wanted to work looser. And I continue to want to work looser with the stuff that I'm doing. So in getting back into acrylics, I started to do that. And paint like I would paint in oils, rather than thinking of it as acrylics, thinking of it as the same as oil. And that's been a little bit of a challenge for me to do that. But it's coming along. Sue had asked about the paints, and there are several brands out there that are very good. Golden and Blix and Utrecht are three of the more popular, along with Liquitex and Windsor Newton. I use all of those different brands. And some are more liquid than others. All of them are considered heavy body paints. They come in a tube. But as Deb said earlier, you can get them in a liquid form that are certainly much more liquid. And Sue, for example, the manganese blue hue, with the golden, they show you what the transparency is right on the tube.
Okay.
And you know, if it's a hue, it's not going to have as much coloring as the others. You also, the Winsor Newton does the same thing. It actually has what the color looks like on the tube, which is very helpful. The chrome oxide, for example, you can see that if you're taking a close look at it, that's okay. That's going to be another thing. And some of the ones you need to avoid is the student level acrylics. They don't have a lot of color in them. They're inexpensive for sure, but they're just not very good. Like Galleria or Galeria that Winsor Newton has. Grumbacher has an Academy acrylics, and you should basically stay away from those. They're not going to do you any good. There's another type of acrylic that came out just in the last few years, and those are the open acrylics. And I have not, and I don't think that has either, used those. And though they're basically supposed to work more like oils. They stay wetter and longer. You can work back into them wet. I haven't tried, I haven't done basically anything with them. But if you want to work more like oil, I guess you can go back.
Brand, did you say?
These are open, this is golden, they're called open acrylics.
There's Atelier, which is its own
Yeah.
brand,
Oh,
and then Golden makes a brand, or a variety of layers. The
Atelier
ones-
has it interactive, it's called interactive.
Yeah. And then the ones, so usually like the golden, if you see a black cap on an acrylic too, that's usually
Yeah.
the open acrylics. I've used them a little bit. I used them for plein air a couple times. I
Right.
tried. I didn't care for them because I work with my paint thinner, and when I added the water to it, it almost got like when you're trying to clean a paint tray from a roller with acrylic paint, you know, like in your latex paint in your house, and it gets that kind of film and it kind of breaks into the stuff. That's what it kind of was doing with me outside. I don't know if it would work more in a studio, but I haven't tried it. In the studio, I don't need it.
And one of the reasons that I like to use acrylics for still lives is because there's a little bit more flexibility. I don't like to use them for plein air because they dry too fast, and I'm not talking about on the canvas, I'm talking about on the palette. You have to continue to moisten them to keep them going. So I prefer oil for that. But I work differently in one than I do the other. I've learned in painting in both what one will do and what the other one will do, and so it works out pretty well. Does anybody have any questions on?
What do you add to Liquid X to give it body?
There are things that you can add. There are gels you can add. There are pastes that you can add. If you like to get that more body to it, there's a modeling paste, or a fiber paste that you can add to it that gives you more body if you like that.
They have so many mediums. There's a list on there. I mean, if you go to like Lick or whatever, they always have like the samples on the walls of the mediums. And there's like sand, and there's one that looks, I mean, there's something you can take and stretch it and it rips or whatever. It's like it makes it real. I don't know the word.
This-
Or it says like good viscosity.
This is a very good booklet if you have a chance and you're interested in that. This will give you a good idea of what's available, at least from gold, for those types of things. Any other questions?